in the next several slides, we'll talk quick-paced briefly about military culture overall so that you have a good feel for who you're dealing with. We're going to briefly talk about what it's like to be in the military, and you're looking, you can look at somebody and size up what they're all about, which is very different from the rest of society, somewhat. Primary missions of the armed forces branches, how the active duty part of the military is the same as the reserve part and vice versa, and how they differ. And there are some subtleties as far as what kind of benefits the veteran can earn, whether they have been entirely in the reserves or the Guard versus on active duty. But again, those are nuances that you want to be aware of, but you don't want to categorize with the veteran right here in the library. You want to simply be aware of it so that you know how to point them to the next pathway again, okay? All right, and then of course, demographic characteristics. Again, very important, so you know who you're communicating with, why you might be hearing and seeing presented to you some things that vary from what you're used to around your dinner table with your civilian friends and family. And then recognizing the alphabet soup of military terms and things that veterans talk about it associated with their going overseas to serve. In the military, there are two main categories of ranks all working together as a team to get an objective accomplished. Each service branch has a certain kind of set of goals, a certain thing that they do best or they think they do better than the other branches. And they have these team members. They got kind of the leader, and they got kind of the worker bees, okay? So on the worker bee side, the ones that really get everything done are the, that tote the rifle, that drive the tank, that dig the trenches, that set up tents, that you name it. It's the enlisted forces, the enlisted members of the armed forces. Now, there are junior enlisted members, enlisting meaning just that. They sign up, they enlist, and they're off and running after they have an appropriate basic training experience. And they are actually led by senior enlisted people known as non-commissioned officers, NCOs, in the Navy called petty officers. And then there's a little kind of the no man's land somewhat, the sort of a blend of the leader and the expert technician, and those are called warrant officers. And then there are the officers, the kind of the corporate managers, corporate execs, and there are three different categories of them, from the most junior through the middle level to the senior grades there. The worker bees, the ones that are getting everything done physically for real, they comprise 84% of all the military personnel. They have specific job functions, rank and file, company type employees. Their leadership increases as they go up through the ranks, the enlisted ranks, and as we mentioned before, when you become an NCO or a petty officer, you are the first line leader for all of the other troopers in your organization. And just to throw out a few other kind of rank-related terms, an Army sergeant, for example, and an Air Force staff sergeant and a Marine corporal are the beginning of that, that management progressive enlisted team member. Okay, so they're in what's now the non-commissioned officer, the taking the bull by the horns kind of part of the team. Okay. And there are different rank names for each of the service branches, and I'm really not going to get into that other than you need to be aware of that. And so when a veteran comes to you and they want to talk about their specific pedigree of service, if you will, you'll know how to listen to them best. You'll know, oh yeah, there's these differences in rank. So tell me about that. Is that like an Army, blah, blah, you know what I mean? You know, again, you know a little bit about something. It can lead to the conversation that allows the veteran to open up to you so that you can best assess what they need. Oh yeah, big code here, E1, E6, O2, O5. That simply means enlisted in the first grade, enlisted in the sixth step up the pay scale. Okay, so these are actually known as a pay grade. The rank then would be, you know, either either private or airman basic or master sergeant or E6 in the Army, staff sergeant. E5, so that's, yeah. So just know that there are these two kind of categories. This is the pay grade. And by the way, that's typically what you see on the DD-214. Okay, you'll see, and you might see both, but you definitely see this. That relates directly financially to what they had attained while serving in the armed forces. Okay. The officer corps, again, managers or leaders as they progress in the officer corps to become more of the executive types in a company. Commissioned ranks means that everybody else they are appointed over the enlisted troops. And in fact, when they take an oath of office, the enlisted troops are sworn to obey the orders of the officers appointed over me. And then in the officers' ranks, we take an oath, very similar to leaders in the civilian government, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the orders of the President of the United States. So there's a little bit of a difference there. Officers hold, technically, they're all commissioned by the President. And does he know everybody by name? Of course not. But they do have big, long lists by rank. You know, like if people are getting 1,000 or getting promoted to captain, say in the branches of the armed forces, you know, this year, then they all actually go through and are read on the Senate floor in the U.S. Congress and are approved. So again, you got that pay grade thing, and 01, that's the beginning of the officer corps. That's either an ensign or a second lieutenant. 04 is like a major or lieutenant commander. 03 captain. 06 colonel, captain in the Navy. There's a captain in the Army and the Air Force and Marines, and then there's a captain in the Navy. Yeah, the captain in the Navy, like you can imagine from the old, you know, all the old war epics, the captain in the Navy is high-ranking, like a colonel in the Army. Okay, so it's just something in general, you know, to keep your eye on. Navy has to do everything completely different. Who are the Navy-affiliated people again? Right? It's a whole nother world. Acronyms are, you know, like they take the first 3 letters of each word in the Navy. So you got like NAV, COM, SUP, FLIT, PAC, right? Whereas in the other branches, it's sort of like, you know, NSCD or whatever. So anyway, the Navy has a very different sounding rank structure. But the thing that everybody has in common is that 01 to 07, well, 01 to 010, I guess. Yeah, and E1 to E10. Okay, that's a standardized thing across all the armed forces branches. If you join the armed forces and you are putting your life at risk, it really doesn't matter whether you are doing so as a private E2 or a general O10. You have all agreed to go out there and serve your nation. And you are putting the exact same thing at risk, and that is your life on behalf of, hopefully, a grateful nation. And so it's that gratitude, that set of benefits that is equally parsed out. And it's really not based on your rank at all, not based on exactly what you did in the service. It's based on what you now need. Okay, that's a great question. Thank you.
Does it matter? On the type of discharge too, right?
Yes, and remember now, we want to try to overcome that where it's possible, help the veteran overcome that where it's possible. So yes, that's true. The veteran may have run afoul of the law while serving, typically right toward the end of their service. And as such, there are, at times, dispensations available to the veteran. And again, that's where you can initially help them to uncover that, send them on their way to the County Veteran Service Office to help them further, to upgrade that discharge. Other than that caveat, all the veterans will be treated the same for their benefits based on what they need versus how high their rank was. Yeah.
I heard not too long back that it depended on whether you did overseas duty or not as to what certain benefits.
Again, and I guess that was back in the intro, there is a little kind of like a virtual matrix of how many types of benefits, exactly which types of benefits a veteran is eligible for based on how long they served and at times where they served. Okay, but again, that speaks more to what their needs have been determined and in many cases legislated to be. For an example, education benefits. Congress has decided and enacted exactly what the rules are for the amount of service that a veteran needs to attain to earn the new GI Bill, the post-911 GI Bill, also known as USDVA Chapter 33 education benefits. Okay, so yes, those benefits are not rank dependent, but some of them are dependent on how much the veteran served or where the veteran served. And specifically, the where the veteran served is very important. Again, knowing a little bit about everything. So we're going to hop around a little bit, but I promise I'll speed through some things to make up for it. Knowing where the veteran served, number one priority for, because of, what? Give me an example of where a veteran served, when that would be really important. Serve in the Gulf War? Vietnam, because of certain number of medical conditions that are presumed to be connected to their service in Vietnam. And that list has expanded dramatically just in the last few years. Many Vietnam veterans are still not aware of that. It opens up a whole new horizon for them to be in receipt of very valuable benefits. And so it's super important, typically at the county level or the Veteran Service Organization level, that we get Vietnam veterans in to update what they understand to be the benefits that they've earned. Okay? So that and the Gulf War are two very prime examples of, because there are some Gulf War illnesses that are now being attributed to service in and around certain petrochemical activities, depleted uranium ordnance, which is used to bust through tank armor, things like that, is just now at the forefront of medical understanding that this is because of where the veteran served. Okay, so those are two really good examples of why it's important, again, to talk with your veteran, and that should be setting off bells in our heads. Oh, Gulf War? Vietnam? Hey, listen, I really want you to look at this part in this book I have here for you, and let's see if you are aware of any of these conditions that are listed here for Vietnam veterans, okay? I think it's like, how many is it, 24 now? Pre-existing, 22? Yeah, it's like almost a couple dozen. It's incredibly important that we get that information to the veterans, and again, get them on the right path to the county Veteran Service Office or to the Veteran Service Organization. Make sure they update a service-connected disability claim with the federal VA, even if they already have one. Time to update it, okay? And in some cases, it is an amazing bit of good tidings for the veteran. Very notable cases recently where a veteran had filed for a medical disability claim post-Vietnam service, soon thereafter, maybe in the 70s, and they've just been plodding along and they have other health conditions that have come up. Things have gotten worse for the veteran, which is never good news, but the better news is on the compensation front, when it's discovered that this veteran now is presenting with medical conditions that are related to their service in Vietnam, that are presumed to be where there is no protracted long wait to figure it out, that veteran is then owed that compensation in arrears from when they filed the claim with that condition. And in many cases, it's decades of back compensation. I know of a case that I just heard this past weekend where a county veteran service officer up north had worked on a claim with a Vietnam veteran, and the veteran's claim was just re-adjudicated because of this pre-existing, this presumptive disease that's now on the list, and that veteran was owed $600,000 tax-free compensation benefit. So that's definitely a life changer. We certainly don't want to see a veteran suffering with a debilitating disease because of where they served for their country. But this helps. Okay. All right. So a great example of why it's important to listen to the veteran and say, oh, so where you served? Okay, good. I want you to be aware of this then. Okay, and that's where, again, you've met your goal with that veteran. Okay. Get them going down that next path. All right. So back to the officers. You know, they're typically, instead of just coming out of high school to enlist, as the enlisted forces many times do, they've gone to college and they've attained at least a 4-year degree. And they are, again, about 14%. They make up the balance just at the tiny little layer overseeing the vast majority of the service members that are enlisted. All right, the branches of the armed forces. Okay, anyway, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard. The one thing about the Coast Guard, just a trivial point, is it used to be in the Department of Transportation until post 9/11 when it was transferred over to the now burgeoning Department of Homeland Security. So the Coast Guard now, in an interesting twist, probably has the most spendable cash of any of the armed services.